Okay. So
we got
it. Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for doing this. I've told Marcia how excited I am, but it's a great honor for me to do this. And
you flew from New York.
Yeah.
You just have to speak out.
Sure.
So my old ears will hear you.
Absolutely. So I'll ask you specifically about the book in a bit, but I hope we can. I want to make this about the whole story. So, to begin with, can you talk about where were you born and raised, and what sort of a childhood did you have?
Oh my God!
Just the small stuff, right?
I was born in a small town, upstate New York, Amsterdam, and of course you can read all that in my first book, Like My Son. We were 7 kids. I had 6 sisters, and I was the only boy. And we were very poor. And we lived by the mill and railroad tracks. And that's when I was a young boy. That's them hobos after from the train would come at night and knock on the door, and I was scared of hell because they all were disheveled, and the hobo would ask for food. And my mother was never afraid, and even though we had not much food, she always found something for them. And she said to me something that I have never forgotten. She said, even a beggar must give to another beggar who needs it more. And I have always remembered that phrase, and it has encouraged me to help other people, like we did on the playgrounds, for the schools. I have a Alzheimer's unit, Harry's Haven, because I have a lot of things.
Right. One thing that I read in preparing for this was that you encountered a lot of anti-Semitism as a kid, and that and that was difficult. It was not fun in your community.
Well, all of the immigrants, there's always someone against the Italian or the Poles, and always someone against the Jews. So the anti-Semitism was a part of my life, all through my life. And it's something that every Jew deals with, and in spite of that, I think the Jewish race has conducted itself pretty well and made their contribution to our life.
Is it true that some members of your community were impressed by your maybe your Hebrew school studies or something, to the point where they wanted you to send you off to become a rabbi?
Oh God, that was awful. They wanted me to be a rabbi, and I couldn't tell them that I wanted to be an actor. Ever since when I was a kid in 2nd grade, I did a play. My mother made me a black apron, and I played a shoemaker in the 2nd grade. And my father, who never interested himself in what I was doing, was in the back, and I didn't know it. And after the performance, he gave me my first Oscar, and that it was an ice cream cone. I've never forgotten that.
So, at what point did you first know that you wanted to be an actor for the long run? Was there a moment that you can remember? I mean, obviously you said you tried it, but when did you know that's what you wanted to be?
I know it when I did that play, and they applauded, and I liked that sound.
Right.
And have been searching for that sound ever since. And sometimes I get it, and sometimes I don't.
Right. Around from your town where you grew up in, you decided, I believe, that you needed to get out. And so how did you go about doing that when it came time for college and beyond? How did you leave?
Repeat the question.
Sure. When at some point I gather that you decided you needed out of Amsterdam. You wanted to go beyond there. How did you go about going off to school and getting into school and studying acting eventually?
Well, when I graduated high school, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any money, and a friend of mine, Big Ricky, he went off to college. So when he came back the first year, he said to me, "Come on, why don't you go with me?" It was not his second year. So I said, "What's the $1?" I had $163 in my pocket. And we hitchhiked to Canton. St. Lawrence University is along the Canadian border. And when we arrived, our last ride was on top of a truckload of fertilizer. So he brought me into the dean's office, and I didn't smell very well. The dean was sniffing. And he didn't believe I said I wanted to go to college. I have $166, but I also had my papers from high school, and I won best speaking prize, best essay prize. So I had a pretty good record. So he said, "Okay, we'll take a chance on you." So I went to college.
It's terrific. After that, how did you end up at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts? How did you swing that one?
You see, remember, I wanted to be an actor when I was in second grade.
Right.
And I stayed. So I thought I should go to a good acting school. So I went to New York, and that's a difficulty because I always didn't have money. But they took me in, and I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn, lots of big stars had come from there. And I spent 2 years at the American Academy. And a young girl was there, Lauren Bacall, and she was, I was in the senior class, and she was 15, 16 years old. He was in the junior class, and we became friends. And I had a thin coat that someone had given me, and it was winter. And she looked at the coat and thought, "My God, I must be freezing." So she went to her uncle and talked him out of an overcoat, and he gave it to me, and I wore it for 2 years. So
that was the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Lauren Bacall can do no wrong.
Right. And at that time, she was Betty Joan Persky, right?
Yes.
A question that I think will be of interest to a lot of people is when and why did Isser Danielovich become Izzy Dembski and then Kirk Douglas? How did those changes come about?
My original name is Isser Danielovich. When my parents immigrated, they never went to school, came to this country. My father had brothers who had come here, and they were using the name Dembski. So we became, they were all peasant. We became Isser Dembski Danielovich. And then Isser became Izzy. Izzy became Enzor. So, to me, when I think of myself as a kid who always is way inside of me, I think of a little Isser. And then, when I went to college, one summer I had a job at a summer stock playhouse in the Adirondacks, Tarmac Playhouse. And that was the first job with Carla Molden and his wife Molden, who came from Chicago, worked there. And when I was working there, they always decided, you have to have a different name. And everybody was suggesting a name, and Carl suggested Kirk Douglas. I said, okay. So I became Kirk Douglas, and when I went to New York, I had that legalized.
So you were in New York and doing very well, and you get. So how did you come to the attention of Hal Wallace? I think it comes back to Ms. Persky again, right?
Well, again, Lauren Bacall comes in the picture. She already, of course, we skipped a lot of my life, 2 years at the writing school. I don't know how many plays I did, but I want to digress to tell you how insecure actors are. I had a part in a play that Pauline Kael, the big critic, said, Kirk Douglas is nothing short of superb. And when I was, that night when I was with my first wife, I think, nothing. Why did he do nothing? Why did he, actors, I forgot, superb,
right.
nothing. So I have always remembered that. But during my 2 years at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, I worked in the winter, and I worked in the Granite Village house where I put on plays, and they gave me a room, and I struggled, and then I started working on the stage. My first job in Broadway, I was an off-stage echo. It was a big production, Catherine Cornell, Cuthbert McClintock directing, I think Judith Anderson, lots of people, Edmund Quinn, and it was Chekhov's Three Sisters. And there's the part of a young Russian soldier that I wanted to play. And he has a scene where he goes off to war, and he says goodbye to the tree around his house. And he looked out in the audience and he said, yo-ho! I was off stage and I said, Yahoo! I was the echo. That was my first part. But I did maybe, of course, then I went to the Navy, and when I had already done about 10 plays, no smashes, and then I was in a play, and Lauren Bacall was in Hollywood doing a movie with Humphrey Bogart. And there were the producers, Hal Wallace, who was going to New York. And she said, listen, when you go to New York, you must see an actor, Kirk Douglas. And again, she played a part in my life, and he saw me and offered me a test in a picture with Barbara Stanley, The Strange Love of Martha Ivers. And so on the train going to Los Angeles, I kept studying my part. When I arrived, I realized I had studied the wrong part. The part I was studying Van Heflin played. I was going to play Barbara Stanley's wife.
Just before I ask you more about starting out in the movies, I just have to ask a question, because when you were coming up as an actor, that was a time when some different new approaches to acting were becoming popular. For some of these guys, it was the method. For some of them, it was something else. For you, could you describe your approach to acting in any way, or was it just whatever came naturally to you?
I have studied Stanislavski, all the acting method. I have done almost 90 movies. My conclusion is acting depends on the status quality that you retain even when you grow up. Because if you look around, kids are not actors. They play cowboy, they play with Indian. You just think of the person you play, and you become it.
Mm-hmm.
Acting is a childish profession. I don't agree with the complicated version of being an actor. You become childlike. I'm a boxer. I'm a soldier. Just become that person for a while.
I think that sounds right. Well, when you first arrived, when you got off the train out here, what was Hollywood, the town? What were your first impressions of Hollywood, the town, and then of the studio the first studio that you went to work at? I believe it was Paramount.
Yes. When I arrived, they said they would test the next day, and they sent a limousine for me, and I was very impressed. I sat in the limousine. I wanted to go to the studio, and I waited, approached the studio. I heard everybody, someone yelling. There was a strike, and there was a group of people all around the studio. And when we went through the gate, they booed. I I didn't know what was happening. But there was a workers' strike, and I found the first day my director, Louis Milestone, was sympathetic to the strike, so he was at the corner drugstore having breakfast. So they had a substitute director, and they kept me in the studio sleeping there for 3 days. Because, you know, imagine I'm in New York, like, what the hell is this? Anyhow, I got the part, and we made the movie.
Now, I've read a lot of your other interviews and articles that over the years to prepare for this, and I got the sense that first movie was not a wonderful experience for a few different reasons, and I wonder if you can share.
Well, of course, I was playing Barbara Stanwyck's husband. And then when the Milestone, we call him Millie, came back, he thought, he said, Kirk, in this scene you must be smoking. I don't smoke. Well, you learn. And I smoked in this scene, and I got sick and had to go to my dressing room, but I learned to smoke 2-3 packs a day, and thanks to Millie Milestone, and I gave it up about 40 years ago. And let me tell you how I stopped smoking. My father, who was above violent, you know, really a tough guy, he used to smoke. And the doctor said, you're going to die if you keep smoking, so you had better stop. So he stopped. He kept one cigarette in his breast pocket. When he felt the urge to smoke, he took out the cigarette and he said, who's stronger? You, me, I stronger. I use the same method and it worked. And I have been smoking since 40 years.
Amazing. The other thing that I just quickly, Barbara Stanwyck wasn't so lovely at first, right?
Well, she was, first of all, she was a brilliant actress, but she was tough. I found her very friendly with the stage crew, but she ignored me. I was playing her husband. And after about 2 weeks, she looked at me, she said, you know, Kirk, you're a good actor. I said, too late. I was a smart actor.
Is it correct that after that film, Wallace wanted to put you under a multi-year contract?
Yes. As with the Cutman there, they signed you up for 7 pictures, 7 years. Burt Lancaster had such a contract. So he said, I only have you for 4 pictures. I want you to sign a 7-year deal or I'll drop you. Somehow that made me mad. So I said, drop me. And he did. Now I was without the contract, which was rare in those days, but I survived. And a few years later, Hal Wallace wanted me to play in a gunfight at OK Corral with Burt Lancaster. And Burt said to me, Kirk, if I do this picture, it's my last picture and I'm out of the contract. All right, so I did it, and I got paid about 5 times what Bryna did. That's movies.
Yeah. For the next, I guess, 2 years, 3 years before Champion, you sort of popped up in a number of very good movies. You weren't yet a big star, but you were in some very good movies. So just quickly, I have to ask you, out of the past, I think, unlike Martha Ivers, where you'd been a little bit weak, this was the first time we saw you as a tough guy, and it's still considered one of the film noir classics. Did you like getting to be a tough guy?
Well, out of the past, Robert Mitchum was wonderful, and Jane Greer, I had a smaller part. I didn't think I was so tough until I did Champion.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was
Then you were tough. The other one that I just have to mention that was, I believe, just before Champion was A Letter to Three Wives, where...
But that was a very good picture. I love that picture. I think I got nominated.
No, you should have been, but they waited until they chose Champion instead. They were the same year, so it was for Champion instead.
Was that the way?
Yeah, but
I forgot that was a long time ago.
That's all right. But you know what? I rewatched this morning just in preparation. We have this great. You're very up on your technology, I know. So YouTube, I went and pulled up your diatribe in A Letter to Three Wives, where you get very angry about the radio and advertising. Do you remember? And I thought that was such a great show-stopping scene. Do you remember where you?
I was very good.
You were. but as you say, the one that really made you a star.
I want to interrupt. You said you assume that I know about YouTube. I don't know anything. I have one computer that my wife gave me.
Mm-hmm.
All I know how to do, and I do it every day, is play Spider Solitaire. And I don't have a cell phone.
Right.
Because I think I feel sorry for kids. They just, my grandchildren, have a dinner for them. They're all...
Right. Well, I have to... This is a big one, the next question, which is...
Oh my God.
Yeah, wait. No, but... Champion was the one that, as you say, made you a star, but your agents said don't do it, right?
They thought I was crazy. They said he's just a New York actor because Stanley Kramer producing Champion had no money. They offered me, I think, $15,000. The agent had me starring with Ava Gardner and Gregory Peck in
the Great Sinner.
The Great Sinner.
Right.
And when I turned that down, they were flabbergasted because I turned it down because I wanted to play a tough guy. So, Champion, a boxer, and of course, it became very successful, and it was a big thrust to my career.
Now, why do you think you wanted to play a tough guy so badly? I mean, if you think about Midge, you could call him selfish, you could call him cocky, you could call him cold. He leaves pretty Ruth Roman, you just ditch her. So why? But yet, there was something that you must have connected to in the character.
Yes, because I'm not such a nice guy. So, you know, I didn't want to be playing the roles of Barbara Stanwyck husband.
Right.
I want to be her lover,
Right.
but had to get rid of the husband.
Right. Also, though, I've heard you talk about the fact that there's one line that Midge says, or I guess, yeah, that he says that you really related to at that time in your life about how he wants to be regarded by others.
Oh, I want people to call me Mister.
Not another "Hey you," right?
Oh yeah, it was. I'm not going to be a "Hey you" all my life. I want to hear people call me Mister.
That's great. So,
My God,
60 years.
it's unbelievable.
60 years.
Oh, it's amazing. So, now that film was, and your performance were so well received. The movie was a hit. You got your first Oscar nomination. Suddenly, you're this big star. How did you handle this change? It must have been a pretty big change in your life.
yes, the big change in your life. You get a lot more money for playing a part.
Right.
And it was encouraging me, which I later did, to start my own company. That Champion was a start.
Yes. Now, just quickly, you mentioned that you've always had a strained relationship with your own father, and that he saw Champion, and you went to him for feedback.
Well, you know, of course, in Amsterdam, New York, then the incident who became Kirk Douglas was now famous.
Right.
So after I did Champion, of course my father never paid attention to me. And as Michael said, Dad is still looking for a pat on the back from his father.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Amsterdam. My father was now not living with her family, and I saw him in Baji's saloon.
Mm-hmm.
It's afternoon, I came in. Hi, Dad. I did a picture, Dad. Champion. Yeah. Did you see it? Yeah. Do you like it? Yeah. Well,
That was it.
that was my meeting with my father. He was not impressed.
Well, you, as you say though, suddenly now you had the power to say yes and no to things. The ball was now in your court. And I know that one thing that was happening at that time that was threatening the movies was the arrival of television. And so the studios would tell their actors, don't have anything to do with television. And what did you have to say in response to that?
Did I use some cuss words?
No, I think you just went on television and
Listen, I didn't listen to studios when I didn't have a power.
Right.
When Al Wallace wanted to send me, I said, F you.
I promise we won't spend as much time on every movie as we did on Champion, but I have to just touch upon a number of the other ones that will always be associated with you and that people still love. And I think the first one that I want to do after Champion, Young Man with a Horn, suddenly, again, Betty Joan Persky. Now you're in a movie with her, and I wonder, it was really the first in this wave of movies that incorporated jazz. Was that a fun one for you to do?
First, let me tell you, yesterday I talked to my son, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
He was at the United Nations. They had a meeting of all Quincy Jones, all jazz musicians. And he said, Dad, I met a guy from Africa who won probably the world's best trumpet player. And he said to me, you know, after I saw your father, a young man with a horn, I began to study the trumpet.
Amazing.
And I think Michael was more impressed than I was. But what of course, Betty, who called Betty, Lauren Bacall, and Doris Day within it. And Betty had a line I still remember. I was just an intellectual goat, leaping from crack to crack, and I will always think, Betty, let me see you say the word. I thought they were the most difficult word to say out loud. But that was fun. And Harry James, you know, I'm not sure that I learned a lot. I learned to play one or two songs
Interesting.
to ensure their veracity.
Yeah.
Is that the word?
Yeah.
That's a very good word. You're pulling out all the dictionaries.
Yeah. The next year, you and Billy Wilder made Ace in the Hole, which I don't know if it was in Europe it was called The Big Carnival, but here it was Ace in the Hole.
Well, they were so, some of the studios are dumb.
Yeah.
Ace in the Hole was a perfect title.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see, we'll call it The Big Carnival. I always called it Ace in the Hole. And I thought it was a very good picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that Billy Wilder was such a brilliant director.
Mm-hmm. I believe at one point, your character, again, in this case, well, I should say, you, as you sort of referred or indicated a little while ago, you didn't mind playing unlikable characters. In this case, this guy was very unlikable, and you at one point asked Billy Wilder, should you tone it down a little bit? And what did he say?
Both knees. Give him both knees. In one scene, Dan Sterling was a girl. In one scene, she was wearing a fur collar, and I get mad at her, and I grabbed the collar and I was choking her. And I said, before we did it, now, Jan, if I was choking too hard, let me know. And I put her in the scene, and suddenly I see her face. Jan, why didn't you tell me?
Right.
You weren't choking me.
That same year, you did another movie that is on every list of, especially of the film noir, the greatest movies, but I've seen it on top 100 all-time list, just a great movie, Detective Story. And I think that actually, a lot of people believe, inspired all of the police procedurals that we now see, Law and Order, all these different crime dramas that now happen. So for you, here again, not a especially lovable guy, was that a good one for you, a fun one for you?
Virtue is not photogenic. So I like playing
Yeah.
bad guys.
Right.
Because kept my contact with the audience. Ethan Ho, Willie Weller. I was lucky. I worked with so many good directors. Mankiewicz, Kazan, Billy Wilder.
Mazzelli.
I'm lucky.
Yeah, yeah.
So where were we?
Well, that was just Detective Story. Do you have any? I know you enjoyed. In your book here, I read about working with Lee Grant, who had her own issues during the Blacklist.
Yes, Lee Grant. I think she played a small part, a shoplifter in Detective Story. If I'm not mistaken, she got a Oscar nomination.
Absolutely.
She was a wonderful girl. And years later, she directed Michael and me and all our bunch in the family picture.
I remember that. And I just have to point out a statistic that I put together. Somebody may have done this before, but I haven't seen it. You must have been a great scene partner because you managed to bring out the best in so many people that even though the Academy never got it right and gave you an Oscar, 3 of your co-stars won Oscars for their performances opposite you. And I just have to tell you, Gloria Graham for The Bad and the Beautiful, Best Supporting Actress. Anthony Quinn for Lust for Life, Best Supporting Actor. Peter Ustinov for Spartacus, Best Supporting Actor. I don't know how many other people have...
Listen, no more nice guys.
Yeah.
But they were all good. You know who's good in bringing the best out his fellow actor is my son, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in fellow tracks.
Yeah.
Especially with women. They all were wonderful.
The next year, after doing Ace in the Hole and Detective Story in the same year, which it would be enough for some careers, the next year you did The Bad and the Beautiful, which is, a lot of people say, probably the best movie ever made about movies.
Yes. You know, it's tough to make a movie about movies. My last book, Am Spartacus, is about the making of the movie Spartacus. And there rarely has been a successful movie about making a movie.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I was too close to it.
Yeah.
But Bad and the Beautiful was very good. And Lana Turner, I think, did her best job.
Absolutely.
She was very good. I was good too.
Yeah. Now, was your portrayal of this ruthless producer, was that based on anyone that actually worked in the business?
Me?
That you really? Yeah.
No, I didn't have a certain person in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I just played the part
Right.
with a very interesting character.
And you got your second Oscar nomination.
Yes.
So that must have been nice. That same year was The Big Sky. And Howard Hawks, you're talking about great directors that you worked with. What did you make of working with him? People always said he was like a guy's guy. Is that true?
We did Big Sky with Howard Hawks in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Beautiful country. And we all lived in tents. And Howard Hawks would take us down. We started the scene, you know. Everyone was about take 5. He could put up a pen, and he really wanted to see now, because suppose you said, you don't do it, and then he would was in, and he was a player. He was a good, he directed Better Be Call and To Have or Have
Yeah.
Not. Yes.
And or the big, yeah.
I think at some of the time when I think of Kirk Douglas, I think it's a Daniel.
Yeah. And he got you to sing.
Oh, whiskey, leave me alone. Oh, whiskey, leave me alone.
That was pretty good. And I remember reading that I think there was some stunt or something in the movie involving the rope on a horse that John Wayne had refused to do in another movie with Hawks, but because he didn't think he could make it could be funny. But he saw that you did it, and after that, John Wayne said to him, "If you ask me to be in a funeral because it will be funny, I'll believe you." Like after you, so that you were impressive with that one. But I believe that your most commercially successful movie ever was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Is that right?
Probably. And I sang in that.
Yeah.
For a guy who can't sing, I sang
Right.
a lot. God, the will of the hills will tell you that.
Now did you do that because you had young kids that they might enjoy it?
Oh, I gave them all a copy of this song.
Yeah.
All the young kids at that time knew that song.
Mm-hmm. And they must have loved, your own kids must have loved seeing you in that one.
When they made a disc of it professionally.
Yeah.
And I maintained, I said in the interview that my friend Frank Sinatra was jealous of
me. You then, I guess it makes sense that after having your most commercially successful movie, that was the time that you chose to do something that very few other actors had done. I believe at that point, maybe the only one that had done it was your friend Burt Lancaster, which was to start your own production company.
Yes.
Why did you choose to do that?
Well, I wanted the opportunity to find some project that I wanted to do. So I started my own company, and I called it Bryna, after my mother. Now, think of my mother, who can't read or write, a legal president from Russia. I take her in the limousine at Times Square, and in the middle, I stop the car. I say, "See, Ma, Bryna, the name I told you. To write, Bryna present the Viking." And my mother says, "America, such a wonderful land."
And you made at Bryna Productions, you made some of your best films that you were a part of. I know that, just to quickly highlight the fact that with that company, Paths of Glory, The Viking, Spartacus, Lonely Are the Brave, 7 Days in May. So before I ask you specifically about any of those, do you think those films could have been made by a regular studio, or would have been made, or did they need somebody that was willing to do them in an independent way like your production company did?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Paths of Glory, probably not.
Huh?
Paths of Glory, probably not.
Oh, no. Paths of Glory, no. Paths of Glory, I saw a little picture that Stanley Kubrick had done. I said, he's very talented.
Mm-hmm.
I called him, he said, "Do you have any other project?" He said, "I have a project, nobody wants to do it." And he sent me Paths of Glory. I said, "Stanley, this picture won't make a nickel, but we have to do it." And I arranged to do it. And it keeps increasing in popularity. each year.
Absolutely.
Especially now that you can see it in certain countries like France.
Yeah.
Yes, it was banned in France for 50 years.
Mm-hmm. Crazy. Before you did Paths of Glory, though, between when you in '55 is when you formed the production company, in '57 is when Paths of Glory came out, but in between, you did the movie that I think a lot of people still associate with you more than any other movie, Lust for Life. And I just have to ask you, you've written that you, quote, never had a movie take so much out of me, close quote. Why?
You know, acting is make-believe. I never believed in Kevin. I want you to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But in Lust for Life, I got so involved with Van Gogh. I read his letter to Seal, and I really was frustrating because I felt like the character were overtaking me. Instead of me, that character was guiding me. And it was a very, very interesting experience. I have never felt that way in any other picture. But I thought it was a good picture. It was nominated for an Oscar, but it did win.
I think it's worth noting, though, that you, when you made the picture, you were the same age as Van Gogh was when he committed suicide.
Yes. And also, we made the picture at all the locations where Van Gogh, the Maison de Jean, the Yellow House in Givenchy, Auvers-sur-Loire. I slept in the bedroom when he died.
And you looked a lot like him.
Yes, that was surprising. It was my beer made it ran, and I looked lots like him. You know, we had a big charity ball at Monte Carlo, and all the actors were doing songs, and I got a big empty frame. And I went, I took it like this, and I just walked like a big head, like a living portrait.
I have heard you talk, just one last thing about Lust for Life. You mentioned that the shoes that you wore and the way that you wore them really helped you to develop that character.
When I just had one shoe, I always had the laces loose. And my wife, for sure, would say, when I was through shooting, coming home, she can hear me shuffling.
Interesting. Now, chronologically, is where Paths of Glory comes in. And why did it take so many years for that great, very disturbing story to become a movie? Why did it take so long?
Well, it was banned in France, and some people don't want to see a movie that downgrades war. But eventually it found its niche, and I think it has been very popular.
That's one of the great war movies. And I guess, though, what it's, in a lot of ways, one of the things that it's remembered for, aside from your terrific performance, is the fact that you chose to have this young director come in and do it as his first sort of major film. Why? What about Stanley Kubrick made you say, I want to work with this guy?
Stanley Kubrick was very difficult, but he was very talented. So I thought his talent outweighed his difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
and it did. And eventually, he directed it.
Right. But were there any major issues involving him on Paths of Glory? I know there were for Spartacus, which we'll get to, but with Paths of Glory, was the production itself a pretty smooth one?
Well, it was very close to the war. And let me tell you a story. There was a German at the gates with holding chain, not let anybody in it until he knows it. Now, we were the big picture at that time shooting in Gaz's guest site. I would come with my drive to the day, he would keep the water. Then he dropped the wire, the chain. I got so annoyed. The next morning I said to the driver, if you stop at the wire, you're fired. I said, go right through. Then I was there, looked like a Nazi with the wire. Boom! I stopped. Then I went back to him and said, you recognize me? Yes. Am I here evermore? Yes. Will never have the chain up when I don't know.
That's fine.
Sometimes I can be difficult.
All right, so now we get to the main course, Spartacus. How did you, and I know that a lot of these questions I know the answer to from reading the book, but just to remind people and preview the book a little bit, how did you first hear about the book, Spartacus, the inspired Spartacus, and then were you immediately convinced after you read it that it could be a great movie, or did you have your doubts yourself?
My doubts about what?
That it could be made into a great movie.
Oh, well, it was, to me, it was unnatural. See, Spartacus was a real character. Not much is written about him because the Romans were embarrassed that this slave almost overthrew the Roman Empire. And like today, there's so many revolutions of slaves, if you want, the poor people against the authority. And I was intrigued with the character of Spartacus, and I just had to make it. And at the same time, we were going through a terrible period of McCarthy era. It was terrible, terrible. I mean, people were put in jail. My book starts with the hearing, and of course, Stolten's from who was probably the most brilliant writer at that time. He was sentenced to a year in jail. Of course, you know the story, how the head of the studio created a blacklist, and you got worn out, supposed to employ them, or when you did, they used a pseudonym. When I think of it, it hurts me. Because that was, because as I say in my book, I Am Spartacus making a film, breaking the blacklist.
Absolutely.
And I'm trying to really give the details of making the film, and it's quite a story. I mean, Steven Spielberg, who loved the book, he said, "Boy, the problem you have, I thought I had a problem making Zorn." And then, of course, culminating with breaking the blacklist.
Well, what was interesting is that I think Howard Fast, right, had been accused himself of being a communist.
Yes, but
he admitted that he was a...
Yes, he got out of it, and then he wrote a few patriotic books.
But he, as part of the terms for making a movie out of the book, you mentioned that he insisted at first on writing the script.
I bought an option in the book, but he insisted that he read the book, read the script. So he started, and I thought it was awful. Just long speeches. So who was the best writer for it? Dalton Trumbull. And he had been living in Mexico. He had come back here, and we made a deal with him. And I would have think like other, and we gave him this name, or he gave himself the name of Sam Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
So we had Howard Fast writer and Sam Jackson, and we would tell Howard Fast that it was Eddie Lewis who worked for me
Right.
at his script. So we give Howard Donald Trump's script to Howard Fast, who wrote it? Eddie Lewis. And he doesn't know anything about writing. This is a mess. When I told
What?
Donald Trump, he just laughed.
Yeah. And if it had become widespread knowledge during the making of the film that Trumbo was actually writing it, what would have happened?
Well, at the beginning, what would happen in the studio would close the pictures down.
And this is Universal.
Yeah, see, of course, when they got too far down the road, and about $8 million, see, the picture cost $12 million. Well, at that time,
Yeah.
that's 50 years ago,
Yeah.
was a lot of money.
Absolutely. You had when the Hollywood 10 and all of that was first taking place. You were just starting. I don't even think you had arrived, or you were just coming up in Hollywood at that time.
Yeah.
Did you know people who at that time were personally affected by it? And also, how did you feel? I mean, it was there was a sense that communists might be inserting propaganda into movies. What did you make of all this at the time?
Well, I was young, ambitious, and I thought that was all stupid and would blow over. But it didn't. And you asked me, people that were involved, and what, can you get the name that comes up? Lauren Bacall.
Yeah.
She went with her husband, Humphrey Bogart, with a group to protest in Washington at the meeting.
This was the Committee for the First Amendment, right? That was the...
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
It's like what's happening sometime right now. I mean, it's hard for me to speak about it because the Blacklist was one of the most embarrassing things in my art history. What people, like people are not supposed to think. Essentially, what you think was, of course, is in the Constitution. I think so, no?
Yeah. Well, as the not only the star but the producer, it was, as you talk about in the book, it was largely on your shoulders to put together this cast and also to get choose a director, and there were we end up the film that people can see today has this incredible cast, and everybody knows that the director was Stanley Kubrick and that you were the star. But what they don't necessarily know is that there was a time when somebody else wanted to play Spartacus, when somebody else was directing it, when somebody else was playing the Gene Simmons part. So I wonder if you can, without... That's all in here, right. But the gist of it was that in terms of, were you always going to play Spartacus, or did somebody try to push his way in?
Let me go back.
Okay.
I bought a book from Ken Kesey.
Yeah.
Called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I always thought it was wonderful. And I love the character of McMurphy. I bought it. No magazine. Too interested, so I thought I'll make it in the play because I said always wanted to go back to the stage. I paid the Wasserman to make in the play. When we went out of town, we were a big hit. We came back to New York, they were indifferent. I played it for, I think, 5 months, and then I came back to Hollywood to make it into a movie. For 10 years, I couldn't make it a movie. My son was coming out of the TV show with Carl Malden, Streets of San Francisco. He said, "Dad, can I try to do something?" I said, "If I can, okay." I gave it to him. In 1 year, he got the money, the cash, and I thought, boy, now I will play my part. Dad, he said, the directors think you're too old. I'm too old, I mean, anyhow. I never played the part.
Right.
Jack Nicholson played it, and I went to see how lousy. And he was brilliant.
Yeah.
He was much better than I would have been, I think. And of course, he won an Oscar.
Right. Interesting how, and also just for as long as we're talking about parts that you didn't play but almost played, I believe that you at one time were looking at Stalag 17 and Cat Ballou, right?
Why do you insist on bring out the dumb things that I did? That was one of the dumbest things I ever did. Billy Wilder wanted me to play in Stalag 17. I read the script. Well, I didn't think I turned it down. He got Bill Holden, and he went on Oscar.
Right.
So what other examples do we have of what
Well, the other big one was
Something I am.
only Cat Ballou, right? That was the only other one.
I forgot that. Again, no, I don't want to play. Someone else win the next.
Well, but coming back to Spartacus, which I think the year that was released was the year that Jack Lemmon won Best Actor for The Apartment. I don't know. I mean, I think Spartacus is hard to compete with, but anyway. But with that, the point I just wanted to make is that you almost, in order to get Olivier to be in the film with you, you had he thought at one time he was going to play Spartacus, right?
Oh. And direct.
And direct, right?
Yes. You see, the script was perfect for Olivier. Belarus and Charles Lawson.
Mm-hmm.
And Dean Simmons, who I don't know why she got a script at the beginning, was so anxious to play Bryna. But I didn't take Dean Simmons because I said, Dean, you know, English, the slave cannot be English. So I was trying to get a foreigner to play, and lots of things happened before I finally capitulated and got Dean Simmons, and she was wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And you have a very funny, I won't make you tell it, but just so people know that in the book, she had to do a nude scene. And she said you were very convincing at getting her to do it.
Well, we had a bathing scene. And she was wearing a bra and panty. Of course, we should have been in the nude. And Stanley said to me, talk to her. I mean, because she had to say, down in water, otherwise they see the bra. I said, Gene, take off the bra. I said, you know, your bosom will be boiling and they will just see a little bit so they know you don't have a bra. She looked at me and started to laugh. I said, what's so funny? She said, Kirk, I bet you were good at getting girls to take off their bra. But she took it off and so she had a beautiful breast, and we played the scene.
The last question, just in terms of personnel on that movie, why did originally you were sort of imposed? Anthony Mann was imposed upon you. You weren't so into it. So how did it wind up that he was replaced by Kubrick?
I did when we were trying to get a director. The studio suggested Anthony Mann. I said, no, he's wrong. He has done Western, but his picture was so successful. They insisted, so we started with Anthony Mann. After about 3 weeks, the studio said, Kirk, you're right. He's wrong. I have to fire him. Well, I'm no Donald Trump. I hate, but I did. But he was so gracious, and I said, I owe you a picture. And a few years later, I did a picture with him. But now, who to replace him? Stanley Kubrick was working with Marlon Brando and One-Eyed Jack. At the same time, Marlon Brando fired Kubrick and took over the director himself.
Mm-hmm.
I called Kubrick, I will give you a script, read it now, see what I want to direct it. All over a weekend. One morning I was the new director, Stanley Kubrick.
And I think the best, well, the most famous scene, I think it's fair to say, in Spartacus is, well, you know what I'm going to say. I am Spartacus. I am Spartacus. I am Spartacus. And I never knew until I read your book how that all came together. And that the idea that Stanley Kubrick didn't even want to entertain the idea of that. It was your idea, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Well, we had many. And usually I won because I was the boss.
Right.
But Stanley was wrong there, but he was right in a lot of other places. He's a difficult guy, but he was a great director. And of course, that was for my book. Am I bringing in my book too often?
No, listen.
I don't want to think to act like I'm selling the book.
No. But I guess looking back, I know you.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
The last time. Forward is by George Clooney.
Awesome. That was great.
Okay, I'm finished selling.
No, we'll sell some more in a bit, but
Okay.
Where did that idea come from for that scene? I am Spartacus. I am Spartacus. I am Spartacus. And why? I know you just watched the film again recently. You mentioned in the book. You can see it's people. If you watch it with an audience, that is the most, I think, as powerful as maybe, except for the last scene where your child. But yeah. But just what's the story behind that scene? Because it's really great.
How can you best portray the love that people had for their leader? Everybody was willing to die for Spartacus. And that's such a scene. And Olivier didn't know how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
He wants Spartacus and everybody to say,
Have you ever been able to go a day in your life when you're out in public without somebody asking you to say, I am Spartacus? It's probably...
It's nice to make a movie that people enjoy and that does something.
Absolutely. And then just the tail end of the Spartacus story, which is what you will, it might be remembered even longer than any of the movies, is the fact that at the end of the day you did put the name of Dalton Trumbo on the film. And when you told him that you were going to do that, he had recently said, the heck with the movie because people were rewriting lines and all of this stuff. But you told him that, and he was very moved, wasn't he?
Well, that was such a terrible thing that the Blacklist really is a shameful thing. But I think if I were much older at that time, I might not have done it because I was young enough to be, stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, when you get older, you get more considerate. Well, why doesn't someone else do it?
Mm-hmm.
Why people say, Kirk will never work in this. But when you're young enough, you have that mercy to do it.
But you always fought injustice. You always reacted to injustice.
Well, that seems
and hypocrisy.
Highfalutin, but it's right. No, it's just wrong. I mean, we are in America. My mother always said, America, that's a wonderful land. Well, but at that time, it was not a wonderful land.
And I think, again, the Kubrick wanting to take the credit.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was a time where, so maybe I think it's worth mentioning, Kubrick was very happy to have his name put on it.
Well,
anyway.
I forgive for that.
Right.
I forgive when people have talent. I forgive a lot.
But was Trumbo very grateful for what you did?
I have a letter that he wrote to me thanking me.
Well, you see in the book the facsimile of the Johnny Get Your Gun page that they reproduced.
Right. Yeah, he thanked me. I thank you for giving me back my name. It was very touching.
The last movie that I want to just quickly ask you about is one that I believe you say is your personal favorite of your movies, and that is Lonely
on the Brave.
Right. Why is it your personal favorite?
I love the character. Again, Golden Trumbo wrote the screenplay. One time, we never changed a word. It was perfect, like a hole in one. And we shot it. I love that character and his relationship with his horse. And I always consider that my best movie. It was not a big success. It can need to be more of a cult film right now. But I love it.
But Scott, Dalton Trumbo was writing that film, was starting that, and then Kirk took him off that to write Spartacus.
Interesting.
They already had the relationship.
Interesting. Okay, so that's how you knew him. I just watched Lonely Are the Brave again for the first time in a while this week, and then I wanted to read what a lot of other, critics and people what they interpreted it to be about, as opposed to just the surface story. And people were suggesting that maybe it's about a guy resisting conformity. He's trying to remain an individual in a world where it's harder to do that these days. Is that what you saw in the story that you responded to? Because that really is also, in a way, the story of Spartacus and of Champion and of a lot of the movies. A one guy going his own way.
Well, if I do a movie just on me, that will be the main thing. Yes. Freedom of expression, freedom, in our country right now, that's the most important thing. All over the world, they're rebelling against leaders who kill you. So, freedom of expression is the most important thing, because people are saying what they think. And when our country denies that, it will be a sad day. So I'm very proud that Spartacus broke the Blacklist, because that was very important. But as I said, I know that it happened at the right time for me, that I was young enough old. If I'm older, well, let's think about it. You know?
Well, the very last little bit is that I just want to bother you about a couple of thoughts, big picture questions. Just first of all, the third act of your life, in a way, you've had to deal with a lot of difficult things with your own health, with loss, with different things. And so I wonder, so many people say how much they admire the fact that after the stroke, you actually maybe kept going harder. Some people would lay down and quit, but you have kept at it more than anybody. And I just wonder, what do you remember of the stroke itself, and why have you been able to persevere?
What do I remember? I was there.
But is it something that you consciously remember, or do you kind of conk out?
Listen.
He wrote a book?
Yeah.
Listen.
My stroke of luck?
Mm-hmm.
Pacemaker. Helicopter crash. Stroke. What does it mean? God does not want me now. That's all.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have some inner philosophy to deal with those adversity. But I realized how lucky I was in many ways. Years before that, I was all set to go with Mike Todd on his private plane to give him an award in New York. My wife had an argument with me, and I told my all right, I won't go. He didn't want to go, wanted me to go. Next morning we heard over the radio, Mike son, all Spartacus killed. Why was I spared there? In the helicopter crash, 2 people were killed. I broke my back. See, so you have to be grateful for miracles in your life, and you have to try to do something to balance it.
And it was interesting that I know another one of your books there, and there's, for people that are curious, there's now I think 10 total. Another one of your books, you talk about the fact that I think you say you're not more religious, but you're more spiritual as you've gotten older. And I just wonder, I know you've at 83 you had a second bar mitzvah, because I guess 70 is sort of rebirth, and now in a few more months, I believe you're scheduled to have another bar mitzvah.
I'm alive at 96, 6 months from now. I will have my second, my third bar mitzvah. But
why is that important to you?
I'm not religious. Mm-hmm. Well, it's important to me because I am proud of my heritage. When I read the history of the Jews, it's a miracle. Why are we still here? And I think religion in general has been a bad thing. I think all religion should modernize. We are basing the religion on something that was written thousands of years ago. For example, Orthodox Jews, women are separated. I don't believe that. Muslim believers, women separate. The woman that got the vote in about, 1920? I mean, now that modern days, that's just, I really mean it. I believe in God, but I don't know who he is. If people say man was created in, whether God was created in man's image, that he moved to the bathroom. I mean, I think, see, when I look at a flower, it makes me believe in God. But I don't know, I just think God is some power that we can't understand. People make up stories, but did anybody really come back? This is subject is too long.
But so the future, though, for the country, we have this election that's coming up, a pretty big presidential election, Romney-Obama. So in terms of the country, and then personally, as you look at the future, are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? You know that. How do you feel going forward?
I am always optimistic. I would be more optimistic if Obama is re-elected for a second term.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has done a good job under diverse conditions. I think he's ready to do much more. And I hope I am first an American, and I want whatever is good for America.
And the last question: what would you like? And you can here. I told you we're going to do one last selling. So if you take the book, what would you like people, especially young people who read I Am Spartacus, your new and latest of the 10 books you've written? What would you like them to take away from it?
Be an American. If you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, always be what's good for your country. Because I, the brother of immigrants, realized what this country had done for me. You know, I didn't have enough to eat when I was a kid. Now I have enough. I usually see food. I don't have to see food now. And I do what I can to help others.
Well, I personally can say it's a great book, and also how much I appreciate you doing this interview. I think it's been wonderful.
My pleasure.